All right, welcome everybody. Andrew, should I kick it over to you to start us off?
Yes, thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mid-Atlantic Arts Public Meeting, where we'll be sharing updates on our Regional Engagement Program, or REP, funded programs with you all. We're really glad that you're here and just want to thank you for taking some time to join us today. Sarah T.
Live captioning is available for this meeting. To turn on live captions, on the control bar of your Zoom screen, select More, and then select Show Captions and send us a message if you need any support. Still good on this page. Okay. Mid-Atlantic Arts publishes our guidelines in PDF and accessible and screen reader friendly Word documents on our website. Throughout your time working with Mid-Atlantic Arts, if you have access needs that are not being met, please email or call the program director for the program you're working on to request an accommodation. You can also email accessibility@midatlanticarts.org. Accommodations requests should be made 2 weeks prior to the application deadline to each program. And I'm going to put that email in the chat. Well, now we can get started with introducing ourselves. And since I'm already talking, I'm going to go ahead and go first. My name is Sarah Tunay. I use she, her pronouns. I am an African American woman with dark brown skin, dark hair pulled back low, and I'm wearing a fuzzy cardigan thing. I'm the program associate for performing arts, jazz, and the creativity and community programs.
I'll jump in. Everybody, my name's Andrew Olness Olson. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the program director of our international grant programs. I'm a white man in my early 30s. I'm wearing brown round glasses, headphones, and a blue dress shirt. And I'll pass it over to Ellie.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm Ellie Dassler. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program director for folk and traditional arts here at Mid-Atlantic Arts. I am a white woman with dark hair. It's about chin length. I have bangs and large hexagon-shaped brown glasses, and I'm wearing a blue sweater. And I will pass it to Joel.
Thanks, Ellie. I'm Joel Chapman, Program Associate for Folk and Traditional Arts, calling here out of Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a white man with medium length blonde hair, wearing a reliable blue polo, and I will pass it on to Sarah L.
Yeah, thanks. And hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Lewis. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the program director for performing arts and the accessibility coordinator at Mid-Atlantic Arts. And for a visual description, I'm a white woman in my 30s with short brown hair and a tomato red sweater on today. Also with us today is our colleague Ernest, who's having some Wi-Fi issues and will be joining us soon. So, Mid-Atlantic Arts staff are located all around the Mid-Atlantic region and beyond. Our offices are located on lands known as Baltimore, Maryland, and I want to acknowledge the enduring presence of the Piscataway, Lumbee, and Eastern Band of Cherokee community members in Baltimore City today. So, on to Joel for the meeting info.
Yeah, so for today's meeting, the agenda is on the screen now. First, we'll tell you about why things are looking different for the 2026-2027 grant making cycle and information about our source of funding. Then we'll talk with you about the programs that will be available for the 2026-2027 cycle. From there, we'll tell you a little bit about our plans for redesigning our REP funded programs in future cycles. And finally, there will be plenty of time for any questions that you all may have, so keep those ready. If you have a question at any point during the presentation, you can enter in the chat. We will collect questions and answer them during the question and answer session at the end of this meeting. If you prefer to ask your question using your voice, we welcome you to use the raise the hand feature during the Q&A, and we'll invite you to unmute so that you can speak your question. And Ernest isn't with us yet, so I'm going to keep going. Is that right, Sarah?
That'd be great, Joel. Thanks.
Yeah, so for some context, Sarah and I are both going to talk you through the questions on the screen. First, what is Mid-Atlantic Arts' relationship to the National Endowment for the Arts, or the NEA, as we call it? Mid-Atlantic Arts is a regional arts organization, or RAO. We are one of 6 RAOs in the U.S. You can learn more about the RAOs at usregionalarts.org. The link is going in the chat now by me or someone else. So, by federal legislation, the regional arts organizations, as well as state arts agencies, collectively receive 40% of National Endowment for the Arts budget, meaning that when the NEA's budget is passed, 40% of it must go out to state arts agencies and regional arts organizations like us here at Mid-Atlantic Arts. And thanks, Sarah T, for that link.
And so next, what is the Regional Engagement Program? Mid-Atlantic Arts receives part of our National Endowment for the Arts funding through a program called the Regional Engagement Program, or REP. REP is a grant program for regional arts organizations only, like Mid-Atlantic Arts, to re-grant to our respective regions. You can learn more about the REP program at the link going in the chat now. So in short, funding from the REP program allows Mid-Atlantic Arts to offer programs to the region we serve for public engagement with the arts. For the last several grant cycles, Mid-Atlantic Arts REP regranting budget has been about $630,000. And out of this budget, we have historically run programs including Arts Connect, Mid-Atlantic Tours, Jazz Touring Network, Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects, Special Presenter Initiatives, Eber Exchange, and others. Joel, back to you, if you don't mind. Oh, but you're muted.
Thank you, Sarah. How has Mid-Atlantic Arts regranting timing worked in years past? Well, Mid-Atlantic Arts has historically opened our grant programs for the upcoming season several months before receiving confirmation of our NEA, National Endowment for the Arts funding. For example, in most recent fiscal year 2026 funding cycle, we opened applications in fall of 2024 when we expected to receive funds in spring of 2025. This is for projects that could take place in the following season. The strategy of launching programs before receiving confirmation of federal funding has been fairly reliable in the past, although there have been examples in recent years of significant funding delays due to hold-ups with federal funding.
Yeah, and so in terms of those challenges, many of you on this call may have experienced one such challenge from our most recent FY26 program cycle for projects scheduled to take place between July 2025 and June of 2026. Mid-Atlantic Arts did not receive confirmation of our NEA funds until late September, and so we did not release grant funds until after that. As you're well aware, this delay created significant challenges for many grantees, requiring postponements and in some, just a few cases, cancellations. And so we're really happy that we've distributed most funds for projects recommended for support during that cycle at this point. But we also want to learn from the experience and shift our practice to better serve the field. So in this meeting, we're sharing what those shifts look like for the 2026-2027 cycle and beyond. So Ellie, to you.
So I'll share briefly just a little more information about Mid-Atlantic Arts funding sources for this fiscal year 27 or FY27 program cycle. So Mid-Atlantic Arts does still offer the programs that we will describe in today's meeting through that National Endowment for the Arts initiative, the Regional Engagement Program, or REP, that Sarah and Joel just described. That is still the anticipated source of funding for all of the programs we'll talk about. However, we are committed to finding alternative funding sources if for some reason we don't receive regional engagement funds as expected, either on the timeline that's expected or in an unexpected amount. We are optimistic, but we are committed to finding an alternative source of funding if something happens. We are also committed to communicating with you as things move along about our funding situation, if and when it changes, and are always available to answer questions as they come up. Quickly, just for anyone listening, I'll describe the photo on the slide right now. Is a circle of folks playing string instruments in like a black box theater space. And it is a Long Point String Band engagement funded by a Mid-Atlantic Tours grant at the Lake Placid Center for the Arts in New York. So now I think we're going to run through some of the programs we'll offer in this cycle, and I will pass it to Andrew.
So these are some of Mid-Atlantic Arts programs that will be offered in the 2026-2027 cycle. We are focusing on the Regional Engagement Program, or REP-funded programs in this presentation, although I'm also going to tell you briefly about Performing Arts Global Exchange, or PAGE program, which is not REP-funded. Sorry for the alphabet soup. Mid-Atlantic Arts will offer other programs during this cycle as well, like our fellowships programs in Delaware and New Jersey, U.S. Artists International for American artists performing at festivals abroad, and other programs. So please make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter to receive updates about our programming. And we'll be getting that sign-up link for the newsletter in the chat now. So we're going to spend a few minutes telling you about each of these programs that we'll be running in the year ahead. Remember that you can add questions in the chat as they come up for you, or jot them down later to ask live during the Q&A. And so, Sarah T., if you could take the Jazz Touring Network.
Ernest is here now.
Oh,
Even better.
Not to steal
Hey,
the
everyone.
spotlight, Sarah T. Sorry.
Sorry about all of that. My Zoom froze, and then I had to restart the program. The program wouldn't restart, and I had to restart my computer. And of course, when I decided to restart my computer, it decided to update, and I had to sit through the update, and here I am. So sorry about that. My name is Ernest Stewart. I am the program director for Jazz. I am located in New York. My pronouns are he, him. I am a black man with shaved head and dark glasses. Okay, so the Jazz Touring Network. The Jazz Touring Network, or JTN, is a presenter-based membership program that's designed to expand the presentation of jazz throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. The program achieves this by providing performance fee subsidies to network members for engagements that are part of network block book tours. Establishing block book tours require members to work collaboratively to nominate and vote for artists. Members are currently eligible for up to $4,000 per year to subsidize performances. Funds can be used to cover up to 50% of artist fees. Artist fees include backline and hotel stays and travel costs. JTN funded engagements must include at least one public performance as well as a community engagement activity. Membership criteria prioritizes performing arts presenters in the Mid-Atlantic region with little or no experiences in presenting jazz. We also encourage applications from experienced jazz presenters seeking to strengthen their programming. The network's membership application opens typically in early August, and applicants are notified of their approval or declination typically in mid-October. However, this year we did not open applications for new members. However, if you are interested, please feel free to reach out.
All right, so on to Mid-Atlantic Tours. So Mid-Atlantic Tours is a non-competitive grant program that's open to presenters within our region that are nonprofits or are units of state, local, or tribal government. Mid-Atlantic Tours is one of our roster-based programs, which means we provide grants to present to presenters that book artists from our curated roster for a public performance and a community engagement activity. Grant funds can be of up to 50% of the artist fee. Now, everyone on the call here is getting a brief sneak preview because we're sending out an email later this afternoon to announce these two artists. The roster this year includes two international music ensembles, Las Anjas from Colombia and Fabiana Cosa from Brazil. A little bit more about Las Anjas. Their music is performed live with a loop pedal and small instruments. The duo's concerts include songs from their four award-winning albums, which have captivated audiences in 10 countries across the Americas and Europe with their unique blend of folklore and the avant-garde. And in addition to their voices, they play the quattro, piano, and percussion. Fabiana Cosa is a samba singer from Brazil. Fabiana and her quartet, it's a total group of four, are on a mission to show the world the gift Fabiana received from her father, who was also a great samba musician who gave his daughter a living heritage of this music. So an email announcing these artists is being sent out shortly after this meeting this afternoon. While this program is not competitive, funds are limited, so reach out to an agent if you'd like to book one of these artists. Letters of invitation or contracts need to be sent to the artist's agent no later than March 23rd, 2026, and grant-supported tours will take place at some point between September 1st, 2026 and December 31st of 2027. This year, the Mid-Atlantic Tours program is supporting tours for these two international artists. The roster will not include regional roster artists in the 2026-2027 year. And we'll be dropping a couple links in the chat, including a link for a brief webinar about this program exclusively that will be held on November 19th at 1 p.m. You can register at that Zoom link to learn more about the grant program, how it works, and to hear directly from artists or their agents. And that will bring us to Performing Arts Global Exchange. So I'm really thrilled to share that Performing Arts Global Exchange is coming back this year. The program is funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, but is funded from a separate grant than the funds that supports our REP programs. The program works very similarly to Mid-Atlantic Tours. It just happens to be open to nonprofit presenters across the US, not just within our region. We're currently in the curation process for the roster, and we will ultimately select and announce 5 ensembles from Portugal and Spain to be part of this program. We expect to announce the roster in December or early January at the latest, and supported tours through this program will take place sometime between July 1st of 2026 and December 31st of 2027, so somewhere in that kind of year and a half span. Nonprofits that book an artist off of this roster are for a community engagement activity or a public performance can receive a grant similarly of up to 50% of the artist fee from Mid-Atlantic Arts. And we're dropping the link for that program in the chat as well. If you are interested in this program, feel free to reach out. We are going to be sending out a survey to presenters in the next few weeks so they can give feedback on artists we're considering for the roster. So if you want to be part of that, let me know.
Thanks,
And
Andrew.
I'll pass over to Joel. Yeah.
Yeah, moving along to folk and traditional community projects grants. It's a long title. We just call it community projects for shorthand. But it all starts to sound the same, right? So anyways, these are grants that fund public-facing projects that support the vitality of traditional arts and cultures throughout our region. Nonprofit organizations and local governments in any of Mid-Atlantic Arts 10 states or jurisdictions may apply. This program can support a wide range of projects, including performances, festivals, workshops, and arts education programs, exhibits, and even field work / documentary work. Projects must feature artists such as traditional musicians, dancers, storytellers, craftspeople, or foodways practitioners. This year, applicants can request up to $5,000. Please note that this is a change from previous years. You used to be able to request 7,000. We always receive many strong applications and we only have a certain amount of funding available. So this has led us to award some partial funding in years past, issuing grants at 80 or 90% of their original request. We're hoping that by lowering the available grant amount to 5,000 maximum, we can prioritize funding all grantees at 100% of their request. We hope this will also help applicants plan your own budgets better because you know you won't receive less funding than what you asked for, and will be able to support more projects. So you can request up to 5,000 for any direct project expenses such as artist fees, program staff, marketing, printing, and other materials. There is a one-to-one cash match requirement. So if you request 5,000 in community project grant funds, you must have an additional 5,000 of other funds to put towards the project for a total project budget of at least $10,000. These applications are set to open January 2026 and will be due April 30th. We will notify all applicants about funding decisions by July of 2026, next summer. And I think, yeah, we got the link in the chat there. Thanks again, Sarah T.
All right, thanks, Joel. So Sarah T and I are going to tell you now about a new program called the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives Program. Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives, or MAPI, is an evolution of the former Special Presenter Initiatives program. The SPI program, Special Presenter Initiatives, was limited to certain states and jurisdictions in the region. But now the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives, MAPI program, is open to the whole Mid-Atlantic arts funding region. So that includes Delaware, DC, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, Virginia, West Virginia, and the native nations that share this geography. Sarah T.
MAPI supports performing arts engagements between a presenting organization and an artist or company, including public performance and community engagement at small and mid-sized arts and community organizations. The presenting organization is the applicant for this grant. Organizations do not have to have a history of presenting performing arts to apply.
Organizations can apply for up to 50% of the artist fee for the performing artist they're working with through this program. And additionally, organizations based in DC, Delaware, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and West Virginia can request an additional $2,000 for other project expenses. The program guidelines are posted online now, and I encourage you to visit and check them out to learn in more detail about the program. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm available and happy to answer any and all questions about this program.
So like the Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects grant you heard about in the last slide, applications for MAPI will be open from January 7th through April 30th, 2026 for the programs happening between September 1st, 2026 and December 31st, 2027. We are holding an informal webinar for the MAPI program on January 21st from 2 to 3:30 p.m. And you can register at the link that's going to go in the chat in a second. In the FY27 cycle, applicants must choose whether or not to apply for MAPI or Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects programs. Now, Ellie is going to talk you through how to determine which of these programs is a better fit for your organization. And the link is in the chat now.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, so this year, if you were interested in folk and traditional arts community projects or Mid-Atlantic presenter initiatives, you will have to choose only to apply to one of the two programs and narrow down which one is the best fit for the work that you're trying to do. So I'm just quickly going to talk through some of the differences between them. Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives is focused on performing arts specifically. It requires at least one public performance along with one additional community engagement activity. And the grant amount for MAPI is specifically an artist fee subsidy. So an organization can get up to $5,000 if they're contracting an artist for a $10,000 engagement, $10,000 worth of artist fees. On the other hand, folk and traditional arts community projects grants can fund a wider variety of project types compared to MAPI, but they have a more specific disciplinary focus on folk and traditional arts. So community projects grants can fund performances, but they can also fund things like cultural festivals, arts education workshops, museum exhibitions, documentary projects, and more. Community projects applicants can also request up to $5,000, but that is for any direct project expenses. So including artist fees, but not limited to artist fees, whereas MAPI is strictly for artist fees and I think artist travel also, Sarah. Yes. Community projects applications, like I said, have a more specific disciplinary focus. So they must feature artists and art forms that fit our definition of traditional arts. That definition is fairly broad, but you should make sure if you're considering a project that does fit that definition. It can include crafts and food and agriculture traditions, for example, as well as performing arts. So if you're looking to support art forms beyond the performing arts or activities beyond performances, community projects grants might be the right program for you. We should note, though, that MAPI can absolutely still support folk and traditional music or dance, as well as contemporary performing arts. So if you are looking to work with a traditional performing artist, consider the kinds of activities you want to fund to decide which program fits your needs. For example, if the activities you're hoping to support are primarily performance-based, a public performance, and then an associated community engagement activity, MAPI might be a better fit. If it's something more like a workshop series or arts education program that includes a featured traditional performing artist, then community projects grants might be a better fit. But that's just one example. So please reach out to us if you have questions or want to share your ideas. We can help recommend which program might work best for the work that you're trying to fund.
Thanks, Ellie. So now I'm going to talk to you about programs that are not running in 2026, 2027. So first, the Special Presenter Initiatives program has been replaced by Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives that I shared with you about a few minutes ago. And for folks that have been served by SPI in the past, MAPI is going to be essentially the same program for you. If you're used to applying for SPI but have questions about how that program is going to fit into your work, I'm happy to talk about that anytime. So second, this is a big one. The Arts Connect program will not run in 2026, 2027. Arts Connect is a legacy program, and Mid-Atlantic Arts is committed to providing continued support for the performing arts field in our region. This shift will eventually allow us to do that, and currently does still, with increased responsiveness to needs of the field, as well as our own funding timelines from the NEA. So applicants who typically anticipate support from Arts Connect may want to consider applying for Mid-Atlantic Tours, Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects, and Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives. Third, while the Mid-Atlantic Tours program is happening, like Andrew mentioned, as you heard from Andrew, it is a smaller scale with 2 artists who are international. The regional components of the program is not going to be available for 26, 27. So a big question that I want to address head on is, where did the funding for these programs go? Between Special Presenter Initiatives, Arts Connect, and the regional Mid-Atlantic Tours program budgets, about half is being directed into the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives program that we shared with you today. The other half, roughly, is being held for new programs to be announced in 2026. Part of the reason for doing this is the timeline issue. We're mitigating some risk by not promising the full amount of our NEA grant before we have it in hand. That's risk for us, but also risk to you as the applicant. And for programs we launch with these funds next year, pending NEA funding, we'll be able to award more quickly after funding decisions have been made rather than issuing intent to award notices that you may be familiar with from past program cycles. Another part of the reason for this shift is to better meet the needs of the field in terms of program design. So Arts Connect and the regional Mid-Atlantic Tours programs have absolutely done excellent things for our region and the artists and organizations here, and I've been really proud to run them for the past couple of years. I also hear from the field some significant issues that leave room for improvement with these programs. So we'll be working with lots of external input to redesign programs funded by REP, and we look forward to sharing them with you next year and in the coming months as we get into our reimagining, redesigning process. So next, Andrew will share a bit more about what that process has looked like so far and where we're headed.
Thanks, Sarah. So for the reimagining of the REP funded programs, this all kind of started actually last year between summer of 2024 and summer of 2025. Mid-Atlantic Arts worked with ISO Arts Consulting, an external evaluation partner, to evaluate grant programs we fund with money from the NEA's Regional Engagement Program. This includes Arts Connect, Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects, Jazz Touring Network, Mid-Atlantic Tours, and Special Presenter Initiatives. That evaluation included focus groups with recent grantees from all 5 grant programs, conversations with staff who work with these programs, and a review of data collected from applications and final reports from these programs over the last 3 program cycles. Thank you to those of you on the call who participated in a focus group for this process. Your time and feedback was very much appreciated. This fall, our team is developing our reimagining plan for how these REP funds will be used in future. And this is all happening in tandem with the completion of Mid-Atlantic Arts' new strategic plan. In winter and spring of 2026, we will be developing updated program designs and seeking field feedback in numerous ways. Stay tuned for ways that you can plug into the feedback process. Then, in late 2026, we plan to share updated program plans with the field, which may include multiple applications and deadlines, whereas our current programs typically only have one deadline a year. Please know that this timeline may shift due to factors beyond our control, but this is our current goal. So stay tuned for more information and updates and reach out to any of us with questions on the process. And with that, we're going to start moving into the question and answers section of the call. Joel?
Yeah, so you got questions. Hopefully, we've got answers. We know we shared a lot of information today, including some significant changes to our long-standing programs. So we welcome your candid and direct questions. Know that this is not your only opportunity to ask us. If you think of something after the session or have a question you'd rather ask one-on-one, set up a time to meet with someone from our program team. All of our emails are going in the chat now. So I think, let's see here.
Going back up to the start of the chat, I know we
That's
had some questions about JTN. So I'll lift up, Ernest, if you're ready, I'll lift up Ty's question here about why Jazz Touring is a member program while all other programs are open, especially since there hasn't been an opportunity for new applicants for some time.
Sure. Hi, Ty. So sorry about the closed application. 2 years ago, applications were open to everyone within or for presenters within our region. The year after that, we opened it specifically for presenters located in West Virginia. This year, with um, the NEA funding issues, we didn't open the applications because the process would have begun so far in front of the time that we eventually got the funding and the confirmation that the program would indeed happen this year. I didn't think it was a good idea to bring on new members. Um, as to why it is a member program, that is a question for a person who created the program back in 2001. I inherited the program as a member program. I'm not sure exactly what went into the creation of the program and its structure. Although I will say that it is a program that has been beneficial for its members, specifically for professional development, and it has been a really interesting and beautiful journey with this program, and running it, and getting to host everyone every year as part of the annual meeting that we hold. Um, but Ty, feel free to reach out. My email is below. And I see there is another question about the JTN. Is there a minimum from Jordan? Is there a minimum number of engagements one needs to book to be part of JTN? Um, just one. Once you're a member, every year you engage in block booking, and everyone has to join or work collaboratively with another organization to book at least one tour or one artist. Oftentimes, uh, presenters go beyond what the baked-in funding would allow, and they'll book five artists in the case of some festivals that are part um, of the network. But yeah, it's a minimum of one. Oh, and is there a roster to choose from? Um, the roster is created by the JTN members, and each year artists are nominated and by JTN members, and then after that, JTN members rank each artist, and after the artists are ranked, we go into the annual meeting and take the artists that had the most interest and use those for block booking. Okay.
Before we go on in order to questions, I want to hopscotch to Sierra's question about sharing the slides and the recording. And yes, we'll make sure to share the slides and the recording to everyone who registered for this webinar, probably about a week after, so about next week. You can also reach out to us directly if you have any questions about anything you heard today. So if you need to drop off at any points, you may from here. And if you do, know that we're so glad that you joined us today and appreciate you taking the time. We will keep going though with questions. Does anybody have one queued up, or shall I keep going down the chat?
There was a question just specifically for you, Sarah.
Yeah. About small and mid-sized organizations. Yes. So let me talk about this. So for MAPI, the eligibility requirements around small or mid-sized organizations is that the program is restricted to organizations with budgets under $3 million, except if your organization has applied to Arts Connect in any of the past 3 cycles, you're eligible to apply. I know that sounds funny. Let me tell you why. We knew Arts Connect wasn't going to be happening this year, and we knew we were going to be expanding the SPI program broadly across the region, right? We wanted to make sure that organizations that have a history of applying for the Arts Connect program or are, interested in that kind of support still had an avenue of support from Mid-Atlantic Arts for the work you're doing in our FY27 grant cycle. But the way that MAPI is structured is a little less restrictive than Arts Connect in that it does not require consortium partnership. So frankly, we were worried that this would open up such a colossal amount of applicants way beyond the bandwidth that the program could support that we wanted to put a budget cap on it at 3 million, while also still allowing like legacy applicants to get their support in. So I'm really open to your feedback on that decision. It was certainly a decision. So, there's lots of ways we could have gone with that, but that's how that went down. So if you have any questions about your organization's eligibility, I'm happy to talk more about whether your organization is eligible, and also get more into like why we came to that decision. But that's the small and mid-sized language is in the guidelines along with that asterisk exception for organizations that have applied to Arts Connect recently. Continuing on down, I see that Ty asked, did you say you can only apply to one or you can apply to both? So this is referring to the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives and Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects. And we are asking that organizations only apply to one of those programs. So Ellie talked you through a little bit about how to know which program would be a good fit for you. And we're all available to talk in more depth about that with you if you want to get some more feedback.
Even if it's different artists?
That's right. Yep. Okay, Emily asked, are there any programs, excuse me, that support organizations outside of Mid-Atlantic area to bring Mid-Atlantic artists?
I can take that one. The only program that we run that provides grant support to nonprofit presenters anywhere in the country, not just within our region on the East Coast, is Performing Arts Global Exchange. And so that program is supporting tours of international artists. So Mid-Atlantic does not have a grant program that supports organizations outside of our region that are bringing in Mid-Atlantic artists. Other regional arts organizations do have grant tours that do, or grant touring programs that support nonprofit presenters in similar ways to some of the programs that we shared about here. Creative West has the Tour West program. And I know NIFA has they used to be called Nest, and they just went through a rebranding. So there are some other regional arts organizations that have grant programs that support presenters that are bringing in artists, and some of those may be open to presenters bringing in artists from other regions. So that would be the thing to check. But we ourselves do not run any programs that provide that type of support.
So next, Debbie. Oh yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
That's what I was going to read. Yeah. So Debbie asks, if eligible, can one presenter submit applications across all the different initiatives available? Sarah, do you want to take that actually?
Yeah, sure. So like I just explained, a presenter would need to choose between the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives and Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects grants. But if you could apply for either of those and Mid-Atlantic Tours, you could be a JTN member and apply to either of those programs and also apply to Mid-Atlantic Tours. So the real limitation there is between those two programs. And additionally, in our guidelines, Ellie, you could speak more to this, but the CALT program, and maybe you can say out loud that acronym.
Yeah, so this only applies to folks within a very specific geographic area within our region. But we also have another grant program called the Central Appalachia Living Traditions, or CALT Experiences Grants. It is another project grant opportunity for folk and traditional arts, specifically for folks located in Appalachian, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ohio. If you're interested, if you are within that geographic area and you want to learn more, we will have a webinar about that program in January. And Joel and I would love to hear from you if you've got questions. But you also cannot apply to that program and Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects and MAPI in the same year. So you'd be choosing between one of those three programs to apply for, based on your circumstances, where you're located, the kind of organization you are, and the kind of project that you're trying to fund. So again, please reach out if you have more specific questions about how this applies to you. But yeah, those are the only restrictions in terms of cross applications this year.
Then the next question is another one for you, Sarah Lewis from Martha. Can you tell us what the elements would be of a successful MAPI application?
Yeah, absolutely. Those Those applications are going to be assessed by a panel of external panelists that will be selecting from the field who are, have expertise in the performing arts, are working artists, are working presenting organization representatives. So they'll be assessing your applications based on 4 criteria points, and those are mission impact, artistry, community benefit, and access. You may recognize those criteria points from the Arts Connect program if you're familiar with that program. So those criteria are ongoing through this program. Those were also the criteria for the Special Presenter Initiatives program. So there's a lot of parallels between all of these programs and what makes it competitive. I would say, one suggestion would be to come to the webinar that we're having in January to hear more details about that program. But to answer very succinctly, I would say, the requirements for the program are 1 public performance as well as 1 community engagement activity. We often see in successful special presenter initiatives applications and Arts Connects in the past that applicants were particularly successful if they went above and beyond those requirements for the program structure. But if you have a really, really compelling project that has 2 really strong components, you don't need to necessarily be doing a ton of stuff if the components are really strong. So I'm available to talk to you more about your proposed project. I can't write it for you, but I can brainstorm and share, context about the program that as I'm able. So that's that. And then show up to the webinar in January for a little bit more information about that, or set up a one-on-one with me.
Then I can take the next question in the chat from Charman Lovelaz. Do you support fiscally sponsored organizations? And so none of the grant programs we talked about on this webinar today support fiscally sponsored organizations. And part of that is actually due to a change put forth by the National Endowment for the Arts this summer. Basically, the terms and conditions for the grant funds that we use from the NEA now specifically says that we cannot use those funds to give them to a fiscally sponsored organization. So unfortunately, no, none of these programs are open to fiscally sponsored organizations, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. When we do have other grant programs at Mid-Atlantic Arts that are privately funded, some of those programs do allow support for fiscally sponsored organizations, but that is kind of a case-by-case basis for those programs on whether or not they support fiscally sponsored works. And then next is another one for you, Ernest. Debbie asks, what are some examples of professional development that JTN has supported?
Sure. So I will preface this by saying at one point we considered dropping the annual meeting, in-person meeting that happens in New York as a prerequisite to the network and network participation. And a few of the members I discussed this idea with revolted against it. On basically because they felt that what they got from being in person with each other was such a strong feature of the program that they really didn't want to see it go. So with that, a lot of the professional development happens amongst the network members, the presenters themselves. It's the sharing of information, um, sharing of stories of working with certain artists, or someone may say, "Oh, I'm thinking about booking this artist," and someone says, "Oh, we booked them last year and 5 years ago, and it was a great experience working with them." Or sometimes, unfortunately, it's a terrible experience. They'll give an example. Also, I will bring in an artist or a manager or booking agent to come in, talk, answer questions, sit on a panel, discuss various topics around performing and presenting, or working with presenters, rather. Hope that helps.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next we have a question from Christine. Are there any changes to the grant award and terms in view of the changes the NEA has undergone? What information are you required to share with the NEA? Okay, big question. And I should probably say before I answer that this is not legal advice and you should talk to your lawyer about any terms or conditions that your organization is accepting as part of a grant agreement. The major one to address head on is that the um, the requirements that the NEA passes on to us and that we require our grantees to sign include language around DEI, and how this language has been interpreted by, our team has been that it does not actually matter if the words DEI are in your programming, but it's about whether the programs exclude any particular type of person or group of people from participating in your programming. So again, I'm happy to talk more in depth one-on-one about that, and please reach out to us to brainstorm. But I think as long as your programs are open to anyone, they are not in conflict with like the meat and potatoes of that requirement as our team understands it. And team, feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything here.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's the big one, that the part of the pass through that we get, since these programs are federally funded, is the executive orders basically can come through. So I know our grants team, who are really the kind of focused on compliance and specific kind of language around those terms and conditions, are working to try and see what they can make available to folks ahead of time who are considering applying to, so that you can see, like, here is what a grant award agreement potentially looks like, with the caveat that, of course, the agreement may end up changing, but that based on our current knowledge of the time, like, here are the specific terms and conditions that you as a grantee would be signing on for. So those are all things that we're trying to do to make sure that there is transparency through the whole process. And then I would just add too that we review these applications we receive ourselves. We put them through panel processes that we run as staff, and these are then approved. Grantees are recommended and approved by our board of directors. They do not go to the NEA for approval.
One other thing I'll add to this point is that the terms and conditions do require, and this isn't new, but it's maybe worth looking at it's worth looking at, that the terms and conditions require adhering to present and future executive requirements. And so you should think about with your team what that means for you. And we're happy to talk with you about that as well. But we will be as transparent and clear about all of this as we can be, as with what we know in real time, and happy to talk with you more. Can't give legal advice, but can share how we're approaching it and what you might need to think about. The next question. Oh yeah, Ellie, go for it.
I was just going to say, I think I saw a follow-up question in the chat from Michelle Bishop about what does it mean to be open to anyone. That's really a shorthand for not violating federal anti-discrimination laws.
Yes.
So again, I would recommend consulting with legal advice for your organization, but federal anti-discrimination laws about, federal anti-discrimination laws. There are some specific ones named in the NEA terms and conditions. It does not mean that you have to have artists from every single available cultural background to be eligible. You said in your example that programming is open to anyone, but artists are of African descent. That would not, from my understanding, constitute a problem, because you're picking a featured artist. They are a part of a particular cultural community. That's perfectly normal. It matters whether the audiences or the program itself is somehow in violation of federal law. I hope that makes sense.
The next question was from Margaret. Do I understand that for organizations larger than mid-size, the only thing to do at this point is to stay tuned? No, that is not correct. So let me say again how we're approaching the mid-sized question with the Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives program specifically. So for Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives program, the eligibility requirements limit a maximum of $3 million budget organizations to apply unless that organization has applied to Arts Connect in one of the past 3 program cycles. So like the Moss Arts Center would still be eligible to apply for Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives this year, for example. And we really looked at, recent Arts Connect subgrantees and applicants when we made this $3 million cutoff and said $3 million is gonna cut off too many folks who are returning subgrantees to this program and make it impossible for them to get support through this Mid-Atlantic Presenter Initiatives program. So we have this eligibility exception where organizations who have applied to Arts Connect in one of the past 3 program cycles can apply. And correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, but I don't think any of the other programs have any kind of like a budget limit that we've talked about today. Yeah. So I will be sending an email out like specifically to Arts Connect applicants, going over that again. And I'm super happy to do a follow-up. I know it's a bit convoluted. I know. And it is the solution for this year that we're going with. So I'm happy to answer any more questions about that. So, oh, I see that Sarah T answered about community roots. But Sarah, can you answer that live as well? So the question
Yeah.
is, are there plans to bring back the Cultural Sustainability Community Roots Grant?
Yeah, I put in the chat that while Cultural Sustainability Community Roots is not an REP program, so it's not funded by the National Endowment of the Arts in any way. We don't have confirmation on a second round yet, but it is something that we are working towards, and I'm hoping that we have positive news soon surrounding that. It's a priority.
The next question I think is for you, Andrew. U.S. Artists International wasn't included in today's agenda, but are you still planning to offer that grant program?
Yes, yeah. So I very briefly mentioned this, but U.S. Artists International is a national grant program we offer that provides funds to American artists performing at festivals outside the U.S. It's not funded by this specific set of NEA money. It's funded by other NEA money. And so that's why I didn't go in depth about it on this specific call. But if you are on the call and you're an artist hoping to tour internationally, know that we'll be opening applications for that program sometime in December, and the application deadline, they'll close on February 25th, 2026. So yes, that is still moving forward. And I think that might be all the questions we currently have in the chat.
And we're right at an hour. Well done, everybody.
But we even scheduled it for 90 minutes. So if you have follow-up questions or just like want to voice some feedback, this can be a space for that. As we said at the beginning, this is not your only opportunity to ask us questions or give us feedback. We're available and interested in what you think. So we'll stay on for a little while if you're heading out. Thank you again so much for joining us. And we'll be sharing a recording and we'll be sharing the slides to anyone who registered probably next week once we get the captions embedded and also the Spanish language captions embedded. So once again, thank you. We'll hold a bit for more questions. I mean, we're here for the Hangouts. I guess I should have brought some tunes for our closeout music. I should have.
Honestly.
That might end up showing some sort of preferential treatment, so you could get in trouble with somebody.
We'll just play every subgrantee's music all at once. It'll be great.
There you go.
Real sound bath type moment.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I think we're going to call it. But thank you again, everybody.
Thanks
And
all.
yeah, really appreciate your time.